Testing, testing. Oh, you might gotta get rid of that owl background.
You have the owl like app.
I do not. Did you want to switch order?
If it has problems.
Okay.
If it's working fine. It's fine.
Folks joining remotely, can you hear us okay?
It was pretty cool.
Cool, thanks Karen.
Is the owl lens like blurry? I feel like,
Yes.
oh,
For some reason, yeah, can't figure that out.
that's
Maybe
fine.
just kind of like dropped it.
Sounds about right.
We're working on
Working.
it. Good evening.
Whoops.
I
It's right, because some of them look good and some of them.
know. Like yours is coming through quite clearly.
Yeah, yeah, you're a little blurry, these are pretty clear. I mean, that's definitely, everyone's just very blurry.
It's so funny. There's always something.
Yeah. But if everyone can hear us, we're really glad.
That's the important part. We just need one more for quorum.
Okay, when you're ready, I have the agenda too, so I'm happy to share that.
Thank you. Oh, great. Here's Barbara. I'm just gonna give it one more minute.
And then you're gonna share slides.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Yeah. Just looking for the link.
Wi-Fi or is it?
Yeah. We have nothing to just. There's your outro. No.
Oh, the shooter one.
This is first one. Two ads and then.
Then I got out. Weird number. Yeah, I was like,
So far.
So does the city have like access to part of this building? How does that work?
It's OSPCD's building office, and there's some of the public schools upstairs. There's a couple of the city departments in there, Rice J. And Cedar Center's there. Yeah. Or tenants of us.
All right, I am gonna get us started because we are definitely at quorum now. Welcome everybody to the December meeting of the Pedestrian Transit Advisory Committee, our last meeting of 2025. Ted, I believe you are taking notes today, right?
That's right.
Thank you. Let's start with roll call. Ted Alexander,
Here.
Ginny Alverson, Meredith Brown,
Here.
Laura Evans, Christopher Ferry,
Here.
Preston Gatelius,
Here.
Satoka Harai,
Here.
Brenda Marvin can't make it tonight. Steve Mulder, Barbara Myers,
Here.
Bianca Norkunis is not here. Vitor Pamplona,
Here.
Zach Rosenberg,
Here.
Alessandra Sider, I'm here. Mackenzie Webb.
Here.
Awesome. And our ex officio JT Scott cannot make it tonight. Kate White
Here.
and Justin Schreiber.
Here.
Amazing. And our guests for the evening.
John Keller.
Thanks for being here, John. And I'm gonna announce for Ted, who's online. Looks like we have an Emily on an iPhone. We have our friend Karen Malloy, and we have Zachary Yarrow. Thank you all for being here tonight. November minutes. Does anybody have any amendments, suggestions, changes they would like to propose for our November minutes? Okay, seeing none, I motion to approve our November minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Just a few announcements before we get going. The deadline for new member applications for PTAC was today at noon. So tomorrow, our working group, which is myself, Preston, Vitor, and Brenda's on our working group. She can't make it tomorrow, but she'll still be participating in interviews. We're going to meet with Kate and Justin to review applications and select folks to interview. And our goal is to interview people in January, and then hopefully welcome 4 new members early next year. So we'll keep you updated on that as that unfolds. Also, we are obviously in a new meeting location tonight. So pay attention to how you feel as we move through the meeting. Those of you online, it'll be helpful to get your feedback on the audio and visual quality. So feel free to reach out afterwards to let me know what you think and whether you want to meet in here again or switch off between here and 101 South Street or move back to 101 South Street fully. Any other announcements? All right. Subcommittee updates. Community events met last Monday. We are planning to table at the Somerville Winter Farmers Market on January 10th. So that's going to be myself, Mackenzie, Ted, and Barbara and Preston. That should be a lot of fun. We usually get a lot of like in-depth engagement at that event. People, I don't know, they really want to talk in the winter about being pedestrians, which is wonderful. And then we also started planning our engagement activities for 2026. We have a very comprehensive list that Kate will email to you pretty soon so we can start coordinating together on that. And then, yeah, we'll have another full year of engagement activities. Design review, I believe you guys did not meet, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then special projects continues to be on hold. Okay. Our first big agenda item of the night is, we have talked about it several times now, but we are going to talk hopefully one more time for the time being on bus routes 90 and 88. So we've been considering recommendations for the future of these bus routes since September, and our goal tonight is really to align on a final recommendation, hopefully. So just as a little reminder, at our last meeting, we weighed several options for these 2 routes. We weighed them against criteria that were voiced by community members, the city, and the MBTA. And those criteria included things like whether bus riders in West Somerville and Spring Hill could have a direct and accessible connection to the Green Line. Also, whether families in West and Central Somerville will have a bus connection to schools in East Somerville, while Winter Hill remains dislocated. Whether high school students will have a bus connection to East Somerville, whether Davis will connect to Assembly, and whether the routes will gain operational efficiencies by eliminating some duplicative segments and avoiding cross street, which is difficult for bus operations. So just based on like the scoring alone that we did, very simply, it suggested that the overall most beneficial option would be to consolidate the 90 and the 88 into one route that ran from Clarendon Hill to Assembly using Cross Street and Broadway. But we had Melissa DeLay, who was one of the senior service planners at the T, and she suggested that the T was not very excited about that option because it wouldn't provide a direct or an accessible connection to the Green Line. It does pass by Gilman Square, but just because of the steepness of the streets, in that area, that wouldn't be an accessible connection. At the very end of our meeting, Preston, I think very astutely, suggested that we just recommend maintaining the status quo on these two routes for the time being. And that's really the recommendation that I want to offer up for discussion tonight. Hey, Logan, how's it going? So I think I'll explain a little bit more about why I think we should recommend that the T don't do anything on these routes for a while. But I think we should also recommend that while the T is not moving forward on these routes, they really engage with our community, maybe do a little design charrette, for example, just to kind of holistically rethink bus service in this area, because there's a lot going on in the area that could benefit from more of like a step back, rather than kind of like tweaking the edges of the 90 and the 88. So just to dig in a little bit more around this recommendation, this would mean that the 90 would continue running from Davis to Assembly using Highland, Cross, and Broadway, and that the 88 would continue running from Clarendon Hill to Leechmere using Highland and McGrath. Right now, I think this is really the only feasible option that would continue enabling Winter Hill families to take the bus from West Somerville to schools in East Somerville, while also providing a direct and accessible connection between West Somerville, Spring Hill, and the Green Line. There are also a few key things that will happen over the next several years that I think will very likely change community needs and open up additional routing opportunities. So that is obviously including the construction of a new facility for Winter Hill School families, so they don't have to keep going to East Somerville, but also the McGrath Boulevard reconstruction that will open up additional route opportunities. So I think we should recommend to the T that they wait to change these routes until both of those things happen, and again, actively engage community members kind of in the meantime. One last thing that I'll add is that I've been in touch a little bit with the folks from the Gilman Square Neighborhood Council, and they pointed out that if the 80 bus route goes away, which currently uses Pearl Street, and it is set to go away in the bus network redesign, then their community would really lack any bus service whatsoever. So they are really, what's that?
Those 80?
The 80,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So kind of the 90 and the 88, they're really invested in these routes because they either provide service close to Gilman Square right now, or in the rethink, they could provide additional service to Gilman Square. So they could take advantage of a new bus-friendly corridor on McGrath, for example. And, you know, kind of in this community rethink, I think Gilman might be a good area to prioritize. And then finally, we've spoken with our friends in mobility. They do not have concerns with this potential recommendation of maintaining the status quo. I think really the only downsides that I can see, along with my fellow officers, are that the T doesn't gain any operational efficiencies from this plan. And they have to continue operating a bus on Cross Street. But they have been operating a bus on Cross Street for about 10 years. So I feel like they can continue doing so for a little bit longer. I think the other real downside to this is that we don't get a more frequent 90 for, you know, another few years. But I think it's a lot easier to deal with the continued delay of more frequent service than a loss in service for many community members. So that's my spiel. What do others think of this recommendation? Do you agree? Do you have concerns? Do you have alternatives? Open for discussion.
If they're not going to combine the 80 and the 90, I'd like to suggest they shift more frequency onto the 90 rather than the 80. Because it seems to me that the 90 is the much more useful route. Assembly Square has much more to offer in terms of shopping and dining and entertainment these days than East Cambridge. And it serves those neighborhoods in East Somerville as well as a bus school. And if you're going into Boston, it doesn't matter enough. You can switch to going to Sullivan or you can switch to the Green Line. So, yeah, I would say that if they're going to keep both routes, it'd be nice to see them shift more frequency on the 90.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm not sure how feasible that is from the T's perspective, but I think that's a good point around, while we're advocating around these routes, why not just re-advocate that they consider more frequent service on the 90 in the interim. Worth suggesting at least.
And if they had to take service off of the 88 to do that, they'd probably do it.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Hi, this is Meredith. This is probably not a surprising opinion, but I endorse the recommendations that you've put forward, and I think the logic makes a lot of sense. There, as you said, like a lot of moving pieces in that neighborhood right now, and I think it makes a lot of sense to not introduce more moving pieces while all of those pieces are in motion. So, yeah, just a vote in agreement.
Great. Thank you, Meredith.
This is Christopher. I think I would also agree with the caveat of definitely getting DOT and the MBTA to talk together about the McGrath redesign, particularly up to Broadway. I totally understand, and I used to ride the 90 almost every day. I totally understand how difficult Cross Street is for the bus, but I think it's important to have something besides. There's already a lot of bus service on Washington. Having something further west would be good. And so I think we've heard DOT say, no, we're not necessarily thinking about bus lanes on McGrath because MBTA is not talking about putting buses there. And MBTA says, oh, we're not looking at putting buses on McGrath because DOT is not looking to put in bus lanes or bus stops. So, get these two in a room to say, yes, we would like to have a bus on this. And it would solve both your problems. But yeah, keep it as it is until that reconstruction goes through. I agree with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Christopher. And something we can underscore, because I think we will have the opportunity tonight to write two recommendations two letters with one of the same recommendations, one to the McGrath team, one to the T around bus service on McGrath. So that's great. Others? Does anybody hate this idea? Anybody oppose it?
I hate that we cannot get anything better than that.
Extremely fair, Vitor.
I know Ginny Alverson, who's not here, was very much in favor of keeping the 88 connection to Leechmere because changing to the Green Line is not really the same, particularly for access to things like the Twin City plazas. Having that one seat ride up onto Highland Avenue is nice, and having those interim stops at Twin City Plaza as opposed to fully at Leechmere. I don't have as much of a dog in that fight, but I can see it. That it would be nice to have a better connection there. Maybe the construction of the hotel in Cambridge and something off of the bike path might improve some of that, but even that's not mass transit. So,
yeah. Thank you for reminding us about Ginny, Christopher. Well, if there is no further discussion on this point, then I would love to move to recommend motion to approve this recommendation. The official motion would be that I draft a letter reflecting what we talked about tonight that we would then send to, I think, just Melissa, unless we should address it to someone else.
Would be Better Bus.
Yeah, they have a generic email, but also it's okay to address it.
Cool. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kristen. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, guys. And thank you for your continued advocacy on this. We've been spending several months on this particular issue, so really appreciate you all digging in and continuing to be invested. And also for to Meredith especially and other folks on this committee for just flagging that like we should advocate on this issue, right? A few months ago, the route was changing and now it's not. And we have had a big say in why it should not. And hopefully can continue engaging on the future of this, of both of these roads. So congrats to all of you. We are going to move on to a very related agenda item, which is another conversation on McGrath Boulevard. So as many of you know, the Mass DOT project team, they recently presented their 25% design for the McGrath Boulevard project. I hope many of you had the opportunity to attend either the open house or the design public hearing that they held, I think last week, both of them. The materials from those are not yet online, I'm pretty sure, but our friends in mobility have prepared some slides just to like highlight key areas of McGrath for us to talk through. And then I have a few advocacy items that I want us to consider, and then very much want to hear kind of your guys' thoughts on the changes from the last design and where we are now. So I'll hand it over to Justin.
All right. So I'm gonna try to move pretty quickly so you guys can talk more amongst yourself. I have a copy of the road plan as well as MassDOT's presentation. I'm not going to try to present the full design, but if we want to focus on an area, I can just bring it up. So like Alessandra mentioned, MassDOT just held their 25% design public hearing, and they also held an open house at Somerville High School with sort of a lot of details about the design. And it's really the first time I think that they've shown every part of the project in detail. And it's a pretty big milestone for this project because this is when like I think the cone of what we can do starts to get narrower, and things like how many lanes and how does this intersection work and just general configuration is like mostly set, and now details and fine details and landscaping, signal timing and how they're going to build it. And they will continue design through 2027. And they're planning ideally to go out to bid that fall so that we could start construction in spring. Best case. So I tried to summarize like the big changes, or things that were sort of not fully clear previously. First, in a number of locations, they have like made the road more narrow, and it may not be immediately obvious, but like things like double lefts onto Island or double rights off of Island are gone. The Broadway full intersection is now in the project. It wasn't previously. It's going all the way up to Blakely Ave. They've removed slip lanes there and also at Somerville Ave and Medford Street. They also provided details about traffic control of the make-block crossings, but unsignalized or not signalized for vehicle locations. And they were very clear at the meeting that, unlike what they had actually said about a year ago, they cannot install a full red, yellow, green signal, mainly due to state restrictions on how a new signal can be justified or warranted. And they are proposing either RFB, rapid rectangular flashing beacon, like the heart of Union Square, yellow blinking lights that flash when you push a button, or a pedestrian hybrid beacon that is like the Kensington crossing with like the also flashing yellow to red. It's a red light that's dark when it's not being pressed. And importantly, they have proposed raised crosswalks at both locations, which is really a first for this type of project. That's big. There's some turning restrictions, so they, along with like removing extra turning lanes and things like that, like restricting some of the movements helped make that possible. And it also makes it possible for them to have pedestrian crossings not have as many conflicts with them. Like at an intersection where right turns at a red light, so that pedestrians and bikes and cars have run straight at the same time. This is like the concurrent crossing we've talked about before. There's a lot of protected concurrent crossing. And then there's turning restrictions that go along with that. And they also detail the construction approach. Everything south of the target, Poplar Street, it's actually going to be a separate project that is a little bit behind where McGrath is at. But the intent is that it will happen either at the same time or shortly thereafter. But it's going to be a separate project, so it'll be a separate design hearing. People may remember that they weren't doing as much with that bridge, mainly because it was undetermined if it was going to be fully reconstructed. Now it is going to be fully reconstructed and be a separate project. And then the central segment, that's really the heart of it, removing the overpass. And then the north segment, they're doing a little bit of work on the Highland Ave Truss Bridge. Around Pearl Street was recently reconstructed, so it's less build that work and then more complete reconstruction. So it's sort of split it into those three segments. This is just to have it on the what we post online where email comments can go. Technically, it's a 10-day comment window from the presentation, which is probably already past at this point, but they know that you guys are looking at this. This is a letter. This is just a formal comment period. It's still possible to email that and write comments at any time before that comment period is in those comments. And I will pause there. Like I mentioned, I have the full road plan. I have MassDOT's slides where you can go through sort of section by section that they've highlighted. And yeah, turn it back over to you guys.
Great. Maybe let's go to some questions before we get into like specifics. Zachary, I see your question online. Thank you for typing it. Why can't we have a button activated regular red, yellow, green traffic light for the crosswalk? I'm assuming you're talking about it at Otis Street. We have a recently improved one on Holland Street, and Cambridge has older ones by Fresh Pond. Boston has newer ones in Seaport.
Yeah, I can answer that. So there's something called the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That is federal guidance about a million different things related to transportation planning. There are a series of what they call warrants for a lot of different things, but for traffic signals, there's sort of 8 ways. Volume in different configurations. There's a school crossing warrant. There's one about like crash history, and Massachusetts as well has what they call their amendments to the MUPCD. There's a state law that allows Massachusetts to say, I mean, I wouldn't say pick and choose, but they can sort of customize and amend what is in the federal guidance for application in Massachusetts. And the last version is from 2022. And essentially, they've restricted the number of ways you can get one of those new signals to just be the volume-based approach. Or I think there's also a carve out for crash history. So essentially, traffic volume on Otis is not enough on the minor street, is not enough to justify installing a signal. And I think the project team, they considered some interesting ideas of like putting traffic on the side street to justify it, but they were sort of a little too extreme, like putting everyone that wants to be on Broadway and McGrath onto Cross Street to Otis Street. Many people would want Broadway traffic coming down small residential street. And in any event, they've said very clearly, despite what they said at the last public meeting, they're not able to install that. So they're still choosing between the RFB and the.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly from the design public hearing, Zachary, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're also asking whether we could have like a signal that looks red, yellow, green, but is only like push activated. So it would like act like a RRFB, but still appear to drivers as a red, yellow, green. Would that be different?
I mean, MassDOT's version of that is the Hawk. It's dark. You push a button, it flashes yellow, and then it goes solid red. And I think the main objection that the city has had and community members have is that after it's solid red, it goes to flashing red for a while. That's overlapping with the flashing yellow for pedestrians. So they're unlike pretty much every type of traffic control, it's possible to, we're sort of saying that cars can go if it's clear. And then pedestrians could theoretically still be crossing. You don't have to walk some at that point, but it's the flashing yellow. But the kind, I think like Holland Street is a green light, right? That's a regular green. It's the same, the rules are essentially the same.
Okay. Okay, one last clarifying question from Zachary, which is there aren't enough people walking across McGrath at Otis to merit it, or not enough people driving?
So the state has said that it's actually, they've limited to the vehicle volumes that can justify the signal. There's not enough on the minor street on the Otis. Just
If the, this is kind of unrelated, but if the Holland Street,
Right.
red went away, would we be unable to replace it like for like? It would have to be a hawk, is what we're saying, or something,
I think it more applies for like a new location. I think as long as it's there, I think we could keep it. There are state controlled intersections that have similar, that are sort of grandfathered in. My understanding is over the years, they limited the number of warrants, sort of slowly kind of restricted them. And then I don't know if it's totally clear whether those amendments apply to the city or could just be the state projects. I'm not very clear. You don't have to get rid of anything that exists now.
Yeah.
For sure.
One quick question, do you know if bikes count as vehicles for those numbers at all? If like bike traffic was routed there, because there's a lot of people that probably are going over the bridge. Or more people that will bike there in the future. And as far as Massachusetts state law goes, I can see that there's being a very gray area, seeing as bikes are treated as vehicular traffic in a lot of ways. Whether or not they should be.
I don't know, but it's quite a high bar. It's like 60 to 80 vehicles per hour for 8 hours every day, which is, I guess, could be possible during peak hours for bikes. It's actually pretty high bar. Just that, but I'm not 100% sure if they include those.
Another question on that point, is there like an override process or is there like a legislation could change it, but is there anything else, another way of overriding with that? That's something.
Not that I know of. I mean, these are the regulations by MassDOT, so presumably MassDOT can change what they are. It's not written into state law directly. I think my understanding is state law says MassDOT, you can come up with these. So they're sort of incorporated by reference, but they're state regulations that will say it's not, itself is not a law.
Are there any intersections or areas that would be helpful to dive into, like from Mass DOT's presentation slides or from the role plan that you guys want to look at in more detail?
Can I ask in general, just how, if we know how wide the side maps, I find they've narrowed and moved, but.
Let's see if we can find that like presentation. I want to say around 8 feet at least in most places if you're off that. Yeah, they're relatively wide. There might be a few places where they go down to like 6 near Pearl. But it's usually between 8 and 10. And that's just like walkway because you have your furnishings on separately. So they're relatively wide. And if you zoom in on any of these locations, there's a number of areas where the sidewalk is probably 20 to 60 feet from the actual roadway because there's a huge buffer, especially in the central segment. Like for example, this is the central piece here. Down here by the, this is the Burger King. There's it's quite a distance from the sidewalk to street.
Still on Otis Street, do we know how many cars are either coming in or out from Otis on both sides? Do you know that?
I have a number handy, but it's well under what's needed.
Right, but my thinking is like, okay, so if we can't have a bridge and if we can't have a safe crossing, what if we do what we're doing with Mossland? We make a dead end, both sides, and we use the street space to design the bridge. So we don't take the sidewalk space for the bridge. If there aren't enough cars coming in and out of Otis from both sides, which I think is the case today because we can't even cross right now, that could be an option. If we went to the bridge then.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the project team. I mean, I can show you guys what they showed for just the size of the bridge structures that would be necessary. So that left images today.
So they're basically saying to make it ADA compliant, we need a lot of space. Then my question is, have they considered just reusing the street itself?
I think their approach is to try to make the crossing as safe as possible because they want to reconnect. I think there's this idea that it's will be a safer condition and we shouldn't need something like that. Then
Do we agree with that?
I don't know, do you?
On that, do you know if the state considered having that section go down to one travel lane? Like it's like, frankly, those crosses will be a lot safer if there's only one car that has to stop rather than one car stops and somebody swerves around and nails some kid just trying to get across this.
I don't know if it was something that I know.
Because that would make it far like easier for people to cross. All they have to do is make sure one car stops.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was one idea that came out of one of the meetings was the medians between every lane.
I'm not even sure that it needs that much width there since it's racing between intersections most of the time for the cars.
Yeah.
I think we might have suggested something along those lines in our last letter, if I remember correctly. So we could certainly advocate for it again.
I would want to, if we're gonna be stuck with something that is a hawk or rectangular rapid flashing beacons. I think that would make it substantially safer for pedestrians that either, especially those who might have like visual or auditory limitations, so they might not be able to see or hear another vehicle coming. They might be able to, notice that one stopped, but not another.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my view, I think we should advocate like top priority, get them to make an exception at this intersection, like Ted was suggesting. Because I mean, their argument for not putting raised crossings on McGrath was policy, right? And they decided to make an exception. So why can't they do that again for this? But I mean, to Preston's point, I do think that we should also suggest some things, some alternatives, if no exception is possible, it's whatever, just not gonna fly, then I think we should make very clear, like, is there another signal that we would prefer, right? Like, I think none of us are excited about hawks, but like, would a rapid flashing beacon feel better? Would we want to narrow the lane down to one, advocate for that to happen? Are there other mechanisms at this crossing that if they couldn't fully signalize it, we would want to consider and put forth?
Do we have counts on like the number of people that are using that bridge currently or like crossing there currently?
Yeah,
Because I feel like that's kind of, it's like they're using the like vehicle number to be like, oh, well, it just doesn't justify it, but it's like, we're not really concerned about the vehicles on Otis, we're concerned about the pedestrians. So it's like, if it's 60 pedestrians or 60 vehicles an hour, if you could have some sort of, okay, well, that number of pedestrians are crossing, so like, that
Yeah.
could be an equivalent. Cause I agree with you, Martin, like, I hate crossing two lanes with just like the flashing, because one car will stop. And like, if another car doesn't see you behind, the original stop car, like, they'll go right through, and that's like an adult crossing, like, and we know that there's lots of kids that are crossing in this area, so. That's definitely a concern.
Yeah, a participant also shared that a parent did a count this morning and counted 38 elementary schoolers using the Otis Bridge in a half an hour.
yeah, my understanding is actually that was the original warrant that they met. When last year they presented the red it was there's a school crossing warrant. It's just that the state has this regulation that says that's not one of the ones that applies.
I think the Hawk is fine if they can configure it not to start flashing the red light while the people are still crossing, like until like, we put the solid don't walk sign on, but I don't know.
That's how the city has it programmed on. The flash is very short. It may not be every facility, but unfortunately.
Is there a good example of a hawk or a hybrid beacon? Because I see people blow past the rectangular ones, every single one in the city I've ever seen. I would be anti-rectangular rapid flashing on any kind of street anywhere. People can't see them, they don't stop, they blast straight through. I mean, as long as as long as cars think they have a red light and the crosswalk is raised, I would certainly recommend that over like. I think it's in Emerson Farms, but actually in Cambridge. They have rectangular flashing beacons in the crosswalk. You can't even see the lines. Nobody stops the beacons. Like, I go out as far as I can and wave my arms as big as I can, and that sometimes will stop one of the lanes. And people don't stop the rectangular lanes.
The magical place where they do is our favorite intersection here on Union Square, exactly. Where they have, but it has a lot of other design elements, to your point, right? It has the raised crossing, it has a median, it has, I think it has like a sign above, right? Like the flashers and the signs are above. Not just
They are
the side.
proposing full overhead mast arms, double. Is the one on that side like the slow flashing yellow? Or
I think it's rapid, but it's 2 lanes on each side, and you're right, because of the active construction, it's very hard to see the crosswalk markings, but it's all totally level, and I think there's still parking on both sides as they're adding in the bike lanes, but so your width is quite. Yeah, which is very different in comparison to the Union
The width
Square.
is so long that like people are used to like the lights are still flashing, the pedestrian's long gone, so people are used to running it. The lights still flashing.
Yeah.
Which brings back to the original point, but I would argue against those. I mean, for Union, I feel like people slow down in Union more because they can see it's raised and there's a median and they're just intimidated by the number of things that are there. Like I haven't necessarily noticed as I've stood there, like the light really has much of an impact on people stopping. It's like they see the median and they're like, oh God, what's that? Or they see the bricks and the raised part.
When you said that they're suggesting raised crosswalks, are you saying that all of the crosswalks will be raised or like a select few? And if it's a select few, is this one of the ones that they're suggesting?
this one and there's a crossing at cross street
Okay.
where it's not a vehicle and for a four-way intersection. But proposing these crosswalks. And I will say they're putting big mast arms up. They don't have to decide right now what exactly goes on those mast arms. There is some like. Not that it's not urgent. I think it's good to get your thoughts out there, but if the community needs more time, choose a recommendation between the two. I think that could also come later. And also conveniently, it is set up where you could add a normal signal if that policy change happens.
Maybe that's something we could advocate for, like,
Yeah.
they could put something up now and then like if they change the rule, they can change it.
Because I think this project team does not, basically it's not have the power to change that.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a snapshot level, could be a longer term.
Yeah, I mean, the project construction is long-term, right? Like, it's not starting tomorrow, so,
Is raising the crosswalks only proposed? Do we need to continue to advocate for raising these crosswalks?
It's on this image, I think they're doing it and, you know, I wouldn't expect it to be the steepest race crossing in Somerville, but they're showing it. And there are some on Mystic Ave by the other hawk, by the Stop and Shop. You want to get a feel for what those are like. But yeah, I think they're really doing stuff that doesn't have to be but.
I do think to that point, you know, now that the seal has been broken, so to speak, on raised crossings, I don't think we should feel shy about advocating for additional locations with raised crossings. I think Pearl Street could be a good candidate for that, for example. And if others feel like there might be additional locations that we could push for, then feel free to raise them. Feel free to raise them. Ha ha ha. So good.
Yeah, I think that would be really nice to have more continuous sidewalks through some of the intersections that aren't having a lot of through traffic, like Pearl Street. And a lot of the other side streets in that area, looks like they have that plan. So it would be like kind of consistent down that section. I did have one question that's a little bit further down the road. I found what the city has in a slide for the area for Virginia Street, Aldridge Street, kind of confusing, where they have like a two-way bike lane and it kind of roughly juts into that path. Is that working with any of the bike network plans or?
I'll bring that up. So here is that location. So there's a few things going on. I think in general, we've asked for the project team to make two-way biking on both sides possible throughout. Between Virginia, Aldrich, and Highland, it's not possible with the current arrangements there. The two-way here on sort of the left side of Pearl, that connects into the Gilman Street neighborway. They were already proposing to close off the sort of vehicle access here. And the city asked them to connect in with the two-way facility so that folks can connect into the neighborhood and go under McGrath. So if you're going to use Somerville, you don't have to cross McGrath, you can continue straight. There's no turning conflicts, and then you can use Gilman Street to go that way. It also works well with the Western Pearl project where they're using the neighborhood to provide the westbound bike route. So this, you can kind of see this is an eastbound bike lane. The westbound route and uses the neighborhood, so it sort of loses that on that. And then, yes, they have shown it going across to Dana Street. And let me just switch over here. They're showing what appears to be a contraflow bike lane on Dana and Aldridge. I'm sorry for the jumping around here. It's very big. I think, you know, we had sort of identified this as a possible neighborway location. I'm just gonna go back here. It's looking well. You can see here, there's a contraflow bike lane. I think the neighborway, sort of the unmarked contraflow, is not something that's formally. It's not an METC standard. It is an ACLA standard. So I think they had some challenges with allowing contraflow biking. Sort of just with a share like we do on our neighborways, and they're showing a bike lane on flood. So the idea is that way on the other side of 93, if you're coming down from Assembly, you have to be on the west side of the road to get under 93. So because if you're going north, the north traffic goes under 93 in that little tunnel. So the idea was, can we not at Broadway force everyone to have to cross, continue on the two-way, and then if they're going to Highland Ave, they have to cross again. So if you're coming down from Foss Park, let's try this again. Apologies in advance. So the project that's under construction now, this 2838 project. They have a shared use path along Crosspark, so bikes and peds together. And then what they've done in this project is extended that shared use path all the way to Broadway. It splits into separate bike and ped at Broadway, but then the two-way just continues right into a contra flow on Aldridge Street. So, I mean, it depends a little bit on where you're going. Sorry, I don't know what happens every single Zoom. But the idea was to prevent crossing and consider like a neighborhood style treatment for those. But I just think that that is not something that's a little bit foreign to MassDOT's they've proposed a contra flow with bike lane instead. Instead of it unlocked the other way. If that answered the question, so the long-winded response.
Is Main Street property of the state or the city?
Wall Street data,
Yeah.
it's city right away. If they're doing the work designing, if they have to meet their standards. Maybe there's something where they could just not touch part of it, but they've done these really great intersection treatments. Since how do we retain that?
But I'm guessing like, is it something we can refine there?
Potentially, yeah.
So can I ask, are there areas besides Otis Street, which I think we should certainly advocate around, but are there other areas that you're concerned about? Any other intersections or stretches that you feel like we should push on?
Well, I think we've made our point about the median multiple times, so that's doesn't get anywhere, but I would like to maybe say that again, just take that median out and make the sidewalk wider, and just that question about sidewalk width, it's like, I'm thinking, I think of a boulevard, I think about 25-foot sidewalks, like something they could in future decades have, commercial development along it or something like, real kind of usable space for pedestrians. I mean, 10 feet great would be, but wider would be better. And then it's to be with that.
Yeah, when we've talked to like in a smaller group with Mass DOT, I don't think it's a bad idea to push on it again. I will say that it seems like they are fairly convinced that this is the skinniest they can do to accommodate like grade differentials on either side of the right of way, as well as to ensure that like pedestrians who are using the island in the middle aren't waiting on like a tiny slab. So I think they've tried where possible to like narrow it when it's far away from intersections and then like widen it once it gets towards the intersection. So again, not saying that we shouldn't advocate in our letter for, them to reallocate that space even further, but maybe just like setting expectations for what they might be able to provide.
Might be good to point out specific areas that it might take more time, but like here, this is not at an intersection.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cross that.
On the topic of narrowing and sidewalk width, the Squires Bridge, it's like remarkably narrow sidewalks. What they're showing here, I don't know if that plan is gonna be significantly different or if that's part of the same planning, but I'm not so convinced they need 2 lanes in each direction for traffic. That's again going to be racing between the intersections where they could have a much wider sidewalk rather than this relatively narrow. I know it doesn't get a lot of use today, but it's not designing for future use.
I think it's perfectly fine to put in. I think basically this project will not be responsible for that. And you should expect sometime in the not too distant future to have a similar design hearing for the Spires Bridge.
Is that one gonna get to 25% design pretty quickly?
Not sure.
Okay.
I know they're a bit behind the graph, I don't know exactly what their schedule is.
Okay.
They haven't had any formal public engagement yet.
I thought they mentioned something that like they were taking 25% and handing it off to the two.
I think they're taking the 25% and then it's like not in this project, that project, they are doing their own, like, what type of bridge are we building? It's a bridge replacements, I think. They're going to like, what kind of bridge are we doing, what are the spans? They're looking at the brick bottom plan. It is a completely separate team. They're talking about it's different.
Just on that, I know it goes over the train tracks, so just like hoping that they build it to possibly allow future like catenary wire for the commuter rail, like
Yeah.
just so that they don't build it and then it's like, oh, it's too short and we can't do something like that. Like if they're, that's something hopefully one day we'll be able to get, and don't want like these sorts of things to be impediments to that.
Yeah.
Just as a note.
Yeah.
Did they say anything about the community path connection to Cambridge?
They showed the Rufo Road intersection, again, this is gonna be through the Squires Bridge project.
Oh, actually,
They did show the Rufo Road intersection.
This is where private property that they said they didn't have
Yes.
answers on yet, so that would be huge for me personally, that just the community path.
Yeah, I don't wanna lose where we are, but this is a two-way facility here and a two-way across. Cambridge is working on something through the park. And then there's a hotel development that is gonna build a ramp along the side of the building. At this point, there is no project that's from the side of the building to the actual path. That's the thing that we'll have to finish that connection. And then I'm fairly certain the Squires folks are thinking about the other way up through the rail line, like Grand Junction Rail. Has all sorts of zone locations as well. But I think there'll be an opportunity to see more detail on this with the Squires.
Justin, could we see the cross street crossing? Sorry to make you go all the way up here.
Yeah, I'm busy.
We'll try to go in and show them. There we go.
So I just wanted to call people's attention to this area because at Cross Street, what is currently shown is a two-legged intersection, right? So two raised crossings with a walkway in the median. This is to accommodate, again, grade differentials, right? It's much steeper on the, I guess, west side of the street than it is on the east side. And so they are having a really hard time like getting a single path. And it is technically feasible to get a single path rather than a two-legged one, but it would require some slip lane activity on, I think, Cross Street, right?
Yeah, the way Cross is now with the slip that's sort of much wider, the triangle island in the middle. I think there was a potential, they're trying, I think, to get closer or looking at an option to have a single crossing. There's just trade-offs with them crossing across Cross Street. How many times do we say that? And then there's also this little, looks like a wide sidewalk. This is intended to be a shared use path from community path. So there's no separate sidewalk. This is for bikes and pets before it splits. So it complicates some of that. But basically the whole is the same RFT or pump with raised crosswalks. And then this little walkway to make up the very difference.
But so just kind of wanted to highlight this to folks. I'm interested in kind of including this in our letter. I think for me, the best recommendation would be for them to get the two legs like as close to each other as possible. I personally don't think it's worth the trade-off of having to have the slip lane from Cross Street just to accommodate a singular crossing. But curious what other folks think about this area, or if you even care about it. You don't have to.
I talked to someone at the open house about making sure the wayfinding and signage is really, really good here. And if it stays two-legged, so you're gonna get bikers off the community path who've been going really fast the rest of the commute. You're gonna hit that sidewalk, and if you can see the sidewalk, but not that it's like a curb on a median, bikers are gonna try and take it, then they're gonna hit it and be in the travel lane for cars. So it's like making sure that it is visibly not an entrance to the rest of the crosswalk.
Is there a rail currently around that median? I'm just trying to look, it looks like
It's
it's
gonna be
black.
like a wall,
Fence.
yeah, or
Yeah.
fence or something like that. And there's, I believe, no grounds, because of, Stevens.
So it's just a curb, people will try it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
People just walk to, like, if it's not, if they think there's no car coming, and a lot of people just walk there.
Yeah.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left in this agenda item. I guess it would be helpful just to kind of get a read on like just general vibes on this plan, right? We've been focusing on stuff that we don't like. But I think that Mass DOT at this point in the game, I think they are really trying to get a sense of like, is the community generally supportive of this project? And like, I personally really want to see this happen, regardless of the particular intersections. Like, I think we should definitely strongly advocate on those ones. But in my view, like it is important that this moves forward to improve what we have today. And I think if others agree that that would be, if others agree with that general sentiment, then I think we should emphasize that in whatever letter we write. I'm seeing nods. Does anybody feel strongly against that point or want to speak in favor of that? Okay, great. Then I feel like we have I don't know, it feels like consensus on the things that we want to advocate around. I'm missing a chat now. So I think I'm going to motion that we draft a letter that expresses general support for this project, that advocates for a full signalization at Otis Street, and if not, some alternatives to make that crossing safer, especially for families. Does a little bit of advocacy around the cross street crossing. And was there something that I was missing?
Wider sidewalks?
Wider sidewalks, thank you, Ted. Yes. And median, reiterating that.
Working with the MBTA to consider bus options.
Yeah.
Thank
where it
you.
makes sense.
Yeah. Anything else I'm missing? Okay, motion includes all of those things. Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
All opposed? Okay, wonderful. 2 letters down. We have one last letter to discuss. We're gonna be busy. So our last agenda item is talking about priorities for the new mayoral administration and city council. Jake Wilson will be inaugurated on Saturday, January 3rd. So it is imminent, and he is already certainly setting his administration's priorities. And obviously the council has 3 new members. So will be important to kind of get on their radars with our priorities. I have had a chance to talk with both Ben Wheeler and John Link around our priorities. So they are very aware of just kind of the stuff that was coming to the top of the survey. and other things that we've been really prioritizing over the past year. I will also say that I just finished serving on the policy committee for Jake Wilson's transition team around mobility and transportation. And so a lot of the stuff that we have been prioritizing on PTAC was able to make its way into our report. But I think it'll be important for us to kind of stake out our own like priorities, right? They can point to PTAC's letter as like the official record of, okay, this is what our advisory group is prioritizing. So we administered a survey to our members. It asked kind of for your top 3 priorities around projects or policies or changes to make over the next however many years. And those were all coming from various advocacy activities and priorities that we had been discussing over the past 2 years, I want to say. So we had about 10 responses to the survey out of 15 members. So that's a 67% response rate, pretty good. Our top 3 responses that each got 6 votes, 1 advancing the McGrath project, so very relevant to our last discussion. 2 advancing the Union Square Plaza and streetscapes project that we did a lot of advocacy around with our walk audit, and that the city has been following up on and continuing to work on. And then our last of the top 3 priorities is moving forward with automated enforcement. So there are a few elements to this. One is continuing to advocate for legalization of automated enforcement for moving vehicles at the state level, but also enhancing our automated enforcement of parked and stopped vehicles at key locations, including bus stops and in bus lanes. And then other responses in order of popularity with 40% of the vote, adding capacity, staff, and funding for the mobility team so they can continue to deliver really high quality projects on a quick turnaround. 30% of the vote went to improving snow removal operations, another 30% to making the community path safer for all users, and 20% to providing better north-south transit connections. So I think that it makes sense to write a letter that emphasizes those top 3 priorities and that mentions the other ones as lesser priorities. But I'm curious if others feel like that is the correct, now that we kind of have these results, if that feels like the right way to move forward, or if there are other policies or projects that you think we should also consider including in this. Open for discussion.
I generally agree with like focusing on those like high priorities, since those are gonna be like big transformative projects like in the near term future. So you know, I think that makes sense to focus our energy there, and then like you said, mention the other priorities as well.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Does anybody strongly disagree with that plan? Great. Well, seeing none, then easy agenda item. I motion that we write a letter and send it to the new mayor and our city council, just expressing our priorities in the manner that I just described. Do I have a second? Thanks, Ted. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, great. Anybody here to give public comment? Well, then thank you all for continuing to comment publicly throughout the meeting. I think we can adjourn our meeting early as a little holiday present. We'll see you in the new year. I am going to be, just so it's on folks' radar, I'm going to be drafting our annual report. So we'll probably have a chance to look at that in either January or February. So get excited. And please let me know if there are things that you want to take up in the new year that I can include in a report. Thank you.
So you're writing 4 limbs.
Yep,
Sorry.
that's okay. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.